and surrounding properties. It is our intent when one drives or walks into this community is to provide an aesthetically pleasing streetscape with compelling architectural features, ample green space, with a sense of home and pride of ownership. So how do we achieve this? Through thoughtful architecture that utilizes components of homes and the heritage of Cane Ridge. As you can note on the site plan, we have articulated all the buildings along the main road, making sure we don't have any long flat surfaces. And we've also we've designed a curvilinear street network to achieve a degree of traffic calming. We have included landscaping, including street trees, ample perimeter and building landscaping. All public roads will be designed with either a 4-foot or 6-foot grass strip with sidewalks on both sides. In addition, a 6-foot wide sidewalk will be built paralleling Burkett Road. And you can see on the site plan on the western property line, the greenway system that we've included. And that will include some benches and some educational signage depicting some important facts about the Cane Ridge community or the property itself. And you can also note that the street is curvilinear street, and we provided as requested, or probably not requested, but demanded by planning that we stub the streets out to adjacent property owners. Also, we have included some connection points for the greenway to expand over time. All roadway signage will be mounted on black decorative posts. The entrance monument will be a single stone column with sculptured wood depicting the community's name. Setbacks along the property will be the north and the east and the west property line will be a 20-foot landscape buffer zone, and the north property line will be a 30-foot, and the setback off of Burkett Road will be a 40-foot setback. And I believe we also are dedicating 23 feet or so of extra right of way for the expansion of Burkett Road someday. The site data, the open space contains 4.59 acres, which is approximately 50%. All parking areas for the stack flats have been located in the rear of the building to enhance the streetscape. And all townhomes have a 2-car garage, spaces on the lower level, and the stack flats will have 1 space per bedroom. And we understand the concern with the community about water quality, and we want everyone to understand that Berkhamsted will meet or exceed metro water quality standards. The plan will seek to decentralize the runoff and use various low impact techniques to treat stormwater on site. We have elected to utilize bioretention areas, water quality devices, and grass line swells for our water quality measures. It is our goal to capture the water at the point source and treat it as soon as possible. All utilities will be located underground, and we've been asked to co-design the electrical distribution system with NES to ensure transformers and switch gears are located in discrete locations. Our amenities will include.
I hate to interrupt you, but I got a quick question about the file. Is the file available to where people where it can be shared, so people can get a closer look? That's being asked in the chat.
I'm asking for the file of this. would it be best to send to you and you could circulate, or is there a way to circulate internally in here?
Well, can it be posted in the chat?
See about
Do
that.
we have that ability? I don't want to waste a lot of your time on it, but if it sort of a worst case scenario, you can always send it to me and I can get it out to anyone that's wanting to take a closer look. If we can't figure out how to get it posted inside the meeting.
I'll send it to you here once we're done presenting, so that way I don't waste everyone's time right now.
Okay.
Okay, as far as amenities go, we'll have a 6-foot wide paved greenway trail that traverses the property. It will be an extension of the Burkett Place Greenway and provide a connection point at the Village United Methodist Church, which will include benches and community educational signage. A community gathering area to be included, a covered pavilion, sidewalk, playground, fire pit, and small oriental garden be included in the northeastern portion of the property. We will provide bike parking and centralized mail drop-off area. And we will use the buffer zone to provide additional landscaping around the perimeter per a landscaping requirement from Metro. That would include trees and shrubbery and so forth along all property lines. And with that being said, I'll turn it over to Gary to talk about the products, homes.
Hi, everyone. Councilmember Rutherford. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with yourself and the community. I'm Gary Wisniewski, owner of Landmark Homes. Been building and developing here in Davidson County and Middle Tennessee since 1989. On the architectural features and the standards of the homes, all the building styles will be American farmhouse / craftsman. What Rick and I have done was taken some of the plans that Boone has on the screen right now, the floor plans that we've used over at South Point, and then retrofitted the elevations to be more of a craftsman style. Boone, can you bring that up for me? One more. Perfect. There you go. As per Metro's regulations and rules on SPs and architecture, all of the homes will have a minimum of 15% glazing on the internal units and 20% on those that face 2 streets and or Burkett Road. The windows, as per Metro's regs, will also be vertically oriented to be a 2-to-1, with the 2, of course, being vertical and the 1 being horizontal. The project will be built using a hardy plank material and or cementitious fiber siding, also with brick veneer and also cultured stone veneer. There will be no untreated wood, no vinyl siding, no EIFS and or what's known as artificial stucco on any of the facades. All the homes will be built with the latest energy efficient standards set forth by Metro codes, which were adopted from the standards of the state of Tennessee last year. All the building elevations that you see will be of a natural stone. There won't be any bright colors. You'll have a natural stone, a natural hardy, and also a natural brick that'll blend well together. If you look at the elevation in front of you where you see the shed roofs, that will be of a probably bronze, a dark bronze standing seam metal roof. The exterior of the buildings also will be constructed with material on the roof that is a 30-year architectural shingle. All the units are built to be completely maintenance free other than hosing them down once again. So on the outside material, you'll have a solid vinyl window. You'll have fiberglass doors, the metal roofs, a 30-year architectural shingle roof on the main part, hardy plank, aluminum soffit and fascia, and then also with cultured stone and brick. So therefore the longevity of these units, both in design and or appearance and or value, will have lasting value. All the covered entries on the side porches will use an exposed beam and square columns as shown in the picture. The homeowner documents and the CCNRs, we've already put together and presented them at the last couple meetings. Upon request, Councilman, we could send that to yourself and or to the group. As Rick stated, in the covenants and restrictions, there's no allowance at all for any short-term rentals, no Airbnbs in the CCNRs. There will also be a limit on any of the units that could be long-term leased, which is allowed per state and federal law, but we will limit that to only 10% of the entire amount of the units. Therefore, we want this to be an owner-occupied neighborhood, not a rental neighborhood. Looking on the data today, in this area within 5 miles of the site, in homes that are new construction built since 2022, there are only 19 active listings in this entire site of 5 miles from this property. The median sales price today is at a $334,000 with an average square foot price of $262,000 per foot. Looking at last year's data on homes sold under $400,000 in this area, there was a total of 196 homes sold. So with that math, there are only 10% of the homes available for what was needed last year. And now that interest rates have stabilized, that is increasing by the day.
And just noting the time, we need to wrap so we can get to a Q&A session for you guys.
Absolutely, Councilman. One last point, and then I'll turn it back to Rick and or to Mr. Cooper. With today's market, if the rates do not change at all through the lenders that we use and ourselves as builders developers, we can offer a buy down for the customer, dropping a rate down as low as 6%. That'll get a payment down to right at the $2,000 mark, all in PITI, also HOA insurance and HOA payments, which will actually be right at the same rate the current rentals are for a 2 and 3 bedroom unit in the area. So as Rick stated, we want to build these, and there's a huge need for service housing, for first-time home buyer housing, which payments need to be around a $2,000 bill. That's the reason for building these type units on this property. Rick?
With that being said, I'll turn it over real quickly to a short statement from John Cooper, our legal counsel.
Thank you, Rick. Just real quickly, I have researched the community character manual, the T3NE policy, which is what governs this area. And the plans that they have proposed are squarely within the T3NE suburban neighborhood evolving policy. Metro Planning and reviewing the plans has come to the same determination. So it's clearly within the land use policy. I'm happy to answer any specific questions about that, but we just wanted to point out that we made an intentional effort to fall squarely within the existing policy.
With that being said, we'll take questions for a few minutes.
All right, I'll kick things off with what's in the chat. There's a question in regards to the construction timeline. It's a very understandable question, given the road work that's going on with the widening of Nolensville Road. That, of course, is a good thing in the end, but, you know, some headaches until it's done. So what are you guys thinking in terms of your timeline if everything moves on track?
If everything went well for us through planning in the council, the earliest we could start would be late this year or early next year would be our first phase for infrastructure construction.
Okay. And then with that, we'll take questions from anyone that wants to chime in. Feel free to jump on in. I'm sure Twana has something.
I'm posting them into the chat.
Oh, okay.
So this is Hannah. Can you guys hear me?
Are you guys looking at the chat, by the way? Because there are a couple more questions that have popped up since I read the one.
Anna, you were low volume, but I could hear you.
We're working on that, Tawana.
Okay, what about now? Is that better? No better?
I can hear you.
John,
We
can
can
you
hear
guys
you.
hear me? John Rutherford, can you guys hear me okay?
I hear you. Yeah,
Okay.
go ahead.
So I'm with the Cambridge Community Club, not in your area, but everything that happens in your area indirectly affects my neighborhood. And I just happened to notice that the traffic down there, I'm kind of curious how that's going to be worked around. I did see some information on, extension of Burkett in the future, but currently that area is pretty tight and full up of traffic at peak times. So adding that many houses does add a lot to the community. Is there any extra work that is supposed to go in for that? Or looking at it?
I can address that from a Metro standpoint. I know that NDOT has expressed that Burkett Road is on their list for improvements within the next couple of years. All that kind of thing goes on a cycle beyond what is absolutely, like emergency type need. So that means resurfacing and then widening in terms of extra shoulder space, that sort of thing, will come along with that work. I wouldn't anticipate any of that happening in all likelihood until the widening project of Nolensville Road is done. So my assumption with what they've told me is that's probably going to follow that work. So we're going to have road work going on for some time, but in the end, it's all going to be a positive. One of the big things that's going to help us traffic-wise is once Nolensville Road is done with their widening project, that's going to come with a couple of extra traffic lights and a retiming of existing lights as well. And that's so not only is the widening project going to help traffic, but the new light system will help as well. Plus, we have the mayor's transportation plan that we're anticipating being on the ballot in November. And I'm strongly advocating that the Nolensville Road number 52 bus route be extended as part of that plan to come down to Burkett to give us some extra availability of our bus system. That Burkett Road area has grown so much. I think that if the bus goes down there, there would be a number of folks that could utilize that are going into downtown. Plus a crossover route along Bell Road over to the Antioch area would give us some direct access to not only Antioch, but the airport from the Murfreesboro Road route. So there's some really good possibilities coming with this plan that will help alleviate traffic just beyond the construction that's happening.
Okay. I got one more, Tom.
Sure.
So I've consistently heard developers talk about these new homes are being built for teachers, for firefighters, for police officers, and their average salary is around $46,000. I'm going to assume these are looking at two-person households, incomes type things, but these prices are not really what's affordable for the people who are currently living in this area. So just want to make you guys realize that it's hard for people that are getting started. It'd be absolutely hard for the homeless guy you guys say you're helping out right now to be able to afford a first-time home right now. So just think about that and remember that when you're looking at our community.
Certainly will.
Any other thoughts or questions? We could take another 2 or 3 minutes or so before moving on to the next project. If anyone else wants to ask it.
I asked several in the chat. One of them is, there's an echo going on, by the way. How does it fit with adjacent properties? There's not any context shown so that we can envision this. We need to see how it fits into adjacent properties, and that would include elevation. I'm extremely concerned about the number of temporary portable gravel quarries that we have going on in the Cane Ridge area right now. I think there are 5 that are currently in operation. This elevation goes from about 750 up on Pettus down to about 550 on Nolensville. So I'd like to hear some response about the elevation and how it fits into adjacent properties. Thanks.
Rick,
Well,
your
as far
team
as
on that?
as far as our grading plan, we have a preliminary grading plan and we try to eliminate as much cut as possible and try to work with the land we have, but you know, it is a situation where it's going to take some grading to make that happen, but we're going to try to minimize that as much as possible.
That's a very small sliver of what ought to be a big answer. Can you show something that shows how this fits into the adjacent properties and how the elevation overall would be impacted? Sorry, Rick, you know I'm as blind as you are.
I mean, the grading plan is not complete, right?
Well, Tawana, our grading plan is not complete. I can probably in a couple of weeks provide something for you.
And what about adjacent properties?
Well, we've provided connection points as far as what's going on adjacent to us. I don't know about their plan. We have some flexibility to make some connections and work within the plan that they may have. As far as to the east, we have the Betnell property, and we made a connection as requested by Metro Planning.
Can you show us that, please?
Put the site plan back up.
I wonder the overall.
That one.
There you go.
So that, can you see that, Tawana, where we stub into the Betnell property?
Yeah, but it doesn't show the adjacent properties. Like all you're showing us is one page, and I'm asking to look at the whole chapter.
Okay, show overall plan. So that's what I have tonight, is that plan there, Tawana. I didn't put the community overlay in that little box that we have there, but that's the plan, the overall plan I have to show tonight.
It doesn't answer the question at all for me. So real quickly, because I know we got to get going. What is your timeline and when is the next meeting so that we can get more information?
Our timeline is to submit for the planning commission next month sometime at whatever available meeting we can make. And we don't have any plans to have another meeting. We've had 6 community meetings and 6 workshops and so I don't know what else I could address. I've made 30 concessions and to the community and tried to work with the community in as many ways as I can. But I don't know what else I could add with another meeting more than I've said tonight.
Well, I'll say this on that, if because I wanted to let everyone know that if there are questions that do not get answered tonight, or questions that just may come up after the meeting that maybe you wish you'd asked, certainly feel free to get that to me, and I'll pass that along to the development team and get answers back to anything that we may feel like we're missing. And so there's certainly time to do that, to still get questions answered. And so I was not expecting to have everything answered fully tonight. So I think everybody's open to still answering questions as we go along.
Absolutely, we certainly will, and we'll have a complete SP package in a couple of weeks that we'll be able to share with the community.
Yeah, but you've also said you're planning on going to the planning commission in a couple of weeks, and if you are doing your final grading stuff, all of that timeline, you're going to have spent a buttload of money and not want to change anything. You're also telling us there's not going to be another meeting. What's changed since we met last time is that the community is finally realizing that we literally have 5 rock quarries going on right now. And so You may remember, I'm sure you remember back a few decades ago when we all got together and fought the rock quarry they wanted to put in down on Nolensville Pike. And, you know, we got that big one stopped, and lo and behold, we've got half a dozen of them going simultaneously here in the community. That elevation is a huge concern. I still don't see anything that actually looks like undisturbed green space. I don't see any kind of buffer, a true buffer, true buffer for neighbors. I would respectfully disagree with you that there is nothing else to be discussed and talked about. And I looked at prices over the last few days, and there is no way in hell I could have ever afforded to live in one of these. So I don't know how it's going to attract our city workers either.
Well, we're here to answer. Do you have further questions? I have no problem answering those. And I've already spent a boatload of money to begin with. And we're still developing that grading plan. It is a preliminary SP. And so the preliminary SP means it can be changed, and it will be submitted to the planning commission and all agencies to determine, you know, if it abides by the rules and subdivision regulations. And as far as a rock, I mean, a quarry, I really don't understand what you mean by quarry on other projects.
You know what how they're mining gravel. You know that's happening in the developments out here. I mean, surely you know it's happening just up the street on Burkett and just on the other side towards Nolensville and in Evergreen and in Tanger and in the Drapac property. All of those are temporary quarries, mines going on where that gravel is being removed. And so, yeah, I know you know what I mean on that.
Well, I do. It's a beneficial technique that you use. And by doing that, you don't have to cut as much rock and dirt, and you can leave more property undisturbed if you have more fill available to put in instead, you know. Otherwise, you end up with a pile of rock that's as big as a 2-acre pile of rock. You got to haul it somewhere. It's got to go somewhere. So you want to make sure your site balances. You've got enough cut, you've got enough fill that you don't have to haul off, you know, 500 to 1,000 to 2,000 loads of rock in dump trucks, and will destroy the streets. So it's very crucial in our business to make sure you understand that that the cut and fill balance of the site is the most important thing you do.
I think it's very crucial to understand that when you cut off the top of the hillside, that we mess up a lot of the water structure. And I think that's a piece that doesn't seem to really matter to the developers that are coming into the area.
Rick, I'll ask a last question that sort of tags onto that, and that's, will this require a significant amount of blasting?
Well, the site is about, based on our geotechnical studies, we've got about 2 feet of soil, maybe 3. And so typically a sewer line has to be 8 feet deep per metro. The water line has to be 3 to 4 feet deep. The electrical lines has to be 39 inches deep. So you have to drill and shoot and blast for all those utilities. So yes, there'll be some blasting going on. And there's no way you can physically get the utilities in the ground without blasting all that. So the whole site is basically below the 3 feet elevation is rock.
If I might say something real quick,
Make it very quick because we need to move on to the next presentation. We're just a little bit over time.
I'll make this real quick. Mr. Blackburn, with all due respect, we've met about this property several times, and you're sort of, you know, I'm hearing your conversation with Tawana, and you seem to be a little bit dismissive of things. But what I want to say is, I want to echo some things that she was saying, in that some concerns are with elevation and the privacy along the sides of the property. And the, you know, with the buffers and, with the neighbor next door, you still have, you know, the elevations and things and how high some of the properties are and things like that. So I'm not hearing ever we've been to several meetings and I don't ever hear how the most primary concerns in literally the next door neighbor. And I never hear anybody talk about planting adequate trees in replacement of the ones that are being taken out, but the undisturbed spaces, those are really important to us out here. We like the undisturbed spaces. We like to, if we're living next door to a development, I have one behind me. I'm looking at it right now. I can't get it. I can't escape it anymore. It's built right behind me. I'm just going to leave it right there. That's it.
Okay, I know that there were other questions, but we are out of time. If you want to send me the questions that may be remaining or any questions that you may think of later, feel free to do that, and I will share those with the development team and work on getting answers back to you. So with that, I just want to say I appreciate this team for presenting and taking their time to share this with us. And I know that Bruce Withers with planning was going to try to join us. I don't think he is on yet, but if he jumps on, we wanted to give him a minute just to talk to us about the planning process. I know there was a planning commission meeting tonight. He may not join us, but he told me that he was going to try to. But anyway, I just wanted to mention that before we move on to the next presenter. So Dan and your team, take it away with yours. You have the floor.
Thanks, John. I'm Dan McVicker. I'm owner of Ramsden Capital, myself and one other person, Benjamin Bird. And we've been active here for the last 8 years in Middle Tennessee. We're in East Tennessee. We're in Texas. We're in Alabama. And all you have to do to see our product is drive down Bell Road next to the school, and also Nolensville in 2 locations. We love South Nashville. And as we all know, the first step for home ownership in this country is typically apartments, apartment rentals. And we take that a step further. We build a good looking product, and we actually help folks purchase their first home. And we've got a program called Ramsden Roots that was Home Start. And myself and my other general partner will pay 70% of the down payment for your first house. So it's a little bit about our company, and Roy can talk about this location, and I can answer as many questions as I can get. I see I'm down to 7% on my battery now, so I need to be quiet.
All right. So, Councilman, can you fix this so I can share? Right now, I can't.
Rosie, are you still with us? Do you have the ability to do that?
Yes, sir, I can do that.
Okay.
Just tell me when you're ready.
It's gone over to you.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay, perfect. Make sure I got the right. Okay. So this piece of property is located at the corner of Old Hickory Boulevard and where I guess Burkett comes in. It's this is the area that I've got indicated in red. It is 14, about almost 15 acres. It is zoned AR2A, and right now I've had on this plan, I've turned the layers on that indicate the sub area. And so this area is within T3 Neighborhood Evolving, and it abuts T3 Community Center. I've put the contours on here so you can see that this property slopes down towards Old Burkett Road. So any development on this property is going to have its sole access off of Old Burkett. There will not be access off of Old Hickory. Always get confused if that's called Old Hickory or Burkett there, but it's going to be, its sole access will be off of Old Burkett Road. So again, this is neighborhood evolving. I've got 168 pages here, and so we're not going to go through all those, obviously. So on neighborhood evolving, you can see the categories of zoning that are allowable within the T3 neighborhood evolving. Now, obviously, you're not going to have higher density in the middle of this policy, but this policy abuts the commercial corridor policy, and therefore it would yield a higher density. And so we originally went to the Planning Commission and talked to them about just doing a base zoning, an RM20A zoning, which is one of the zonings that are allowed. But what we did is we filed and began the process of doing a regulatory SP. And so the regulatory SP is to allow 20 units per acre with regulatory requirements that identify building height and materials and floor area ratios and so on and so forth. Let's see here. I've got something that's actually might be helpful to the community based upon that prior discussion, if I can find that. And that has to do with the overall development within this north side of this corridor. And I think it's on page 107. Well, before I get that, so we did a traffic study, and the traffic study based upon 288 multifamily units, which would be the area of the property multiplied by 20 units per acre. And the results of the traffic study was, I know that there's been some improvements now at the main intersection where Old Burkett comes into Burkett Road. And so based upon that, and based upon the amount of traffic that we'd be generating, it says that at the intersection of Nolensville Pike and Old Hickory, that there would be no laneage or traffic controls or multi-modal modification that would be required. At the intersection of Nolensville Road and Burkett Road, the same thing. However, where our access points come out onto Old Burkett Road, there would have to be a right ins and right outs, a left turn in, a right turn out, and Old Burkett Road would have to be widened because it's an inferior street right now. So the entirety of Old Burkett Road will have to be widened to Metro standards, extending from Old Hickory Boulevard all the way to Burkett Road. Let's see.
Roy, you mean from Burkett over to Nolensville?
Well, I'm sorry, you're right. From Burkett to Nolensville along the entire Old Burkett Road will have to be widened to Metro standards, because right now it's just a very narrow, not even a 2-lane street. I know that the road's been improved there at the intersection of Old Burkett. I've seen that on the ground, but obviously Old Burkett Road is not, it needs to be improved, because the access from this development, there'll be 2 points of access and they'll both be onto Old Burkett Road.
So this is where we get ourselves in trouble. We tried to bring this up. I think it was Councilman Bedney back then about Old Burkett Road, and Circle K was allowed to build right up to the back of Old Burkett Road. And then just a few feet across it, there is a historic marker that's been placed on a point on the other side that can't be disturbed. And you end up not having sufficient width to even do the improvement you're talking about. But even that misses the bigger picture. You're not just impacting Old Burkett Road. Those people are going to leave Old Burkett Road and go down Nolensville or go down Burkett, which means you impact the people all the way in at Lenox Village. You impact the people down at Carruthers Crossing. You impact the people internal to Cane Ridge itself. And going back to the point from earlier for Councilman Rutherford, Burkett Road has been discussed as being improved and widened for, I know, going on 2 decades now, and it still hasn't happened. And you've got a little development here and a little development here and a little development there and a big one over there, and still there's no improvement happening. We're still putting the cart before the horse.
So, point, I mean, this is in a process. We actually had a meeting with NDOT and with Metro Planning, because even on a most recent development that was went through the process adjacent to this, NDOT totally missed the major thoroughfare plan. So they're showing a road going through an adjacent piece of property with us, and actually the one that the prior applicant had talked about, and that road only has a 50-foot right of way. It's supposed to be a 59-foot right of way. It's supposed to be a collector street. And so I have looked at that. I've looked at how these road networks are going to come together, which I was going to share with you, and I may do that. But so NDOT is re-looking at all of this and looking how these access points are going to occur and what type of improvements need to happen. And that's still an ongoing process and has not been totally settled on as of yet. But we do know that Burkett Road, Old Burkett Road, is inefficient. It needs to be widened. And if our client needs to gather right of way, either dedicate right of way from his side or even participate or help Metro with identification and dedication of right of way on other properties, that's what he'll have to do. But for our site to have direct access onto Burkett Road, we can't really do that. It would not be beneficial to do that. And also because of the grades of the site and how the site sort of falls away from Burkett Road down towards Old Burkett Road, we need our access points to be on Old Burkett. And in the major thoroughfare plan, there was actually indicated to be a potential access from Old Burkett to another street. And I think Metro has determined that that's not going to be beneficial because it's going to put traffic onto Old Burkett and then back out to Old Hickory or Burkett in locations that are not really desirable. So anyway, back to this plan, and we'll get to some questions in just a minute, but let me see do I still have this? Looks like I lost this, or it's still there. Okay. So what I did was, and because a lot of times when we do a specific plan and we started locking ourselves into so many specifics that you're almost required to come back to the planning or back to the community on multiple occasions. And so when I talked to planning, and I think planning would support a base zoning on this, obviously, any concerns of the council member, or any concerns of the community, or any input that we would receive cannot be placed into a base zoning bill. So that's why this has been started as a regulatory SP. And within this regulatory SP, you can see, and I've laid it out here, Tawana, and I can give this to you, and I think the council member may already have it. And I'm sure that this is going to be added to or modified as we go along. But more specifically, you can see that under the RM 20A zoning, there are certain floor area ratios and impervious surface ratios. And so this SP mirrors that. So there would be 20% of the property that would not be impervious surface. We've identified that buildings could be as tall as 60 feet. And I say that because when you're working on those slopes, in order to put buildings in that work with the slopes, you want it to be maybe 2 levels or 3 levels on the lower side, and an additional level on the lower, 2 or 3 levels on the upper side, and an additional level on the lower side. And that way it keeps you from having to do so much excavation and a mini quarry like you're talking about on other projects. So we're trying to come up with a building that would actually work in conformance with the topography. The setbacks would be 20 feet around the perimeter of the property. There will be buffers placed around the perimeter of the property. Although this property has little impact on the properties that are adjacent to it. It's adjacent to the church on one side. There'll be a 20-foot buffer there. And then it's adjacent to another development that's to the east or northeast their development sits much higher than our site. Our grade difference is so low that there will not be any impact of buildings onto an adjacent piece of property. Regardless, we're still showing buffers, 20-foot wide buffers with landscaping, with type C buffers. Hopefully that some of these buildings may have access points on the roof where they're flat and more modern in architecture. And that's something that we've added into the specific requirements on this regulatory SP. All the roadway improvements that are required by Metro would be a part of the SP itself. And it would be anyway, regardless, we would be required to do that. As far as stormwater, you know that Metro is very stringent on stormwater. So every development in Nashville is going to have to maintain quality stormwater. We recognize that this actually, however, is more a direct discharge into Mill Creek. And so if need be, we can add some additional layers of stormwater to this project, which would be above and beyond Metro standards. And so I don't see anything else here that would not be normally within the language of a normal SP. There are architectural standards. These are standard provisions of Metro as far as glazing are concerned, or amount of, there will be no vinyl. They would all be brick or masonry products. And again, the maximum number of units allowed is 288. So this is currently a regulatory SP. We feel like it's probably the best way and the most flexible way to do this. It is not abutting any existing residential. So the community's concerns would probably be mostly traffic or stormwater. This is a needed product, and I think Dan talked about that. I know that there are a lot of employees that they service right now, people that are trying to get into housing, but a lot of those cannot afford to go directly into a home. So these developments are high scale, and Dan has given you some examples of those. And
Roy, can you hear me?
What they allow you to do, or they help the community, or they help these service workers to be able to afford their first house.
Can you hear me?
I'm sorry, I barely could hear you. Did something
Okay. But yeah, I wanted you to pause for a second because for one thing, we're running out of time and we do need to get to some questions. But I wanted to ask you if you happen to know about the trail that goes through the woods there. Is that trail on this property or is it on the church property? Are you familiar with that?
I am not familiar with any trail. And you know, we did start a process with planning, council member. And the main reason we did that was just to get as much information as we could. This has been scheduled to be heard at the Planning Commission several times. We've deferred all of those until all these questions can be answered, including the input that we received from the community tonight. And so we're going to continue that process. I am not aware of any type of trail running through this site.
Okay, I just know that the woods there, right beside the church, there's a trail that's just there, a few yards off of Old Burkett is a trailhead. It's actually marked on the church property, but then it goes off into the woods towards this property. So I didn't know if that actually touches this property or not. That might be something to look at because I don't know where exactly the line is right along there. But then also I wanted to know if anywhere in what you have here that you're presenting us shows us what it looks like, what you're looking to build. Are you that far along with the process yet to be able to show us that?
Well, we can show you something graphically. I think Dan, wants some flexibility on this. We don't want to go into great detail, but I'm going to go back just a second based upon what you just said. And that's why community meetings are so valuable many times. I think NDOT has decided that they don't want a connection from this new collector street that would be to the east of this, but it makes really great sense that there might be some kind of pedestrian access down towards that commercial area. And so I think I'm really glad you mentioned that, because I think it's something that could be incorporated in this plan that would actually serve the residents that would be living on this property, but also serve people that are actually on adjacent developed sites, so they can have a walkable access to the services that are provided in that commercial area. So I like that. Appreciate that.
Yeah, and if you aren't sure about the trail or not sure where it's located, you let me know. I'll be happy to take you to it.
But we could actually take it a step forward and actually formalize an area, maybe put it in some type of an easement, which would formalize it. Because if there's a trail right now, it's probably just meandering through various parcels, I assume. I don't know.
That could be.
You can see it on what's on the screen right now. It runs through the pointed areas where the contour changes right up the property boundaries.
Okay, sort of. Can you see my cursor?
Yep, that's where it is.
You're saying it's just sort of following that. Well,
correct.
I think there's a good opportunity here to formalize something along this property, which would be a really asset for the community to provide walkable access and also serve the residents that would be within this development itself. So as far as the layout's concerned, Councilmember, you can see how these contours are laying, and the elevation difference between the two darker contours would be a 10-foot difference in elevation. So you're not going to lay any building in there, at an angle to those contours. The buildings would be placed parallel to those contours, so you're working with them. So they would just basically be stepping right down that hillside towards 2 points of access. And I can provide a layout that shows you that. But I'm hesitant to get into too much detail on a plan that needs or begs for a little flexibility in the future. And I think that from my perspective, I know that the community has a list of items that they look for, and I think the majority of those items could actually be incorporated into a document that would be in writing that might actually be more forceful than something that's just shown on a plan. But that's something we can talk about.
Okay. Certainly get anything to me once you have something that shows a little more detail.
Okay.
Because I'd like to have that available for anyone that wants to take a look at it and to share it with Twana and her folks.
I want to
And I
jump
would ask
into
Twana.
the question.
Mhm.
Roy, you're at a different place on a timeline than Rick is with his. And I think that presents a challenge. However, there would be less overall asphalt and fewer entrances onto either Burkett or Old Burkett if the two of you cooperated on an entrance and exit, 1 or 2 points of ingress, egress. Would you be willing to talk with Rick Blackburn and work with them about doing that? Because less concrete is better for the development. It means more undisturbed green space or disturbed green space. It saves each developer money and the community comes out a winner.
I think that would be fine. And that is something that we have had a discussion with planning about and with NDOT about. And I don't know where that is, but I have a sketch that shows a roadway network on the adjacent piece of property to us. And I guess that where it stubs into Rick's property as well. And the way this was laid out is that this future network of roads was going to actually go through the church property and connect to a roadway system over there as well. And I think that whole idea has somewhat fallen to the wayside, and really needs to be looked at and evaluated right now and refined. And so I have begun that process, and I would welcome Rick to be a part of that. And as far as time is concerned, Twana, I mean, I know that, Dan, and he's probably here, whether he has any percentages of power left on his phone or not, I don't know. But I have deferred this.
Found a plug.
So this has been deferred several times, and I don't know, how much rush he's in, but I would certainly think that there's time to coordinate this with anything that's going on adjacent to the community, adjacent to this development as far as Rick's concerned. And also, Twana, I know that you had a list of that you had showed me at one point in time of concerns of the community and things you wanted to address. Would it be possible for you to send that to me?
It's in every email that I ever send. It's in the signature line, both
Okay.
documents.
Well,
I'll
wouldn't
resend
mind,
it.
just send it to Roy@DillonAssociates.net, and let me look through that and see if there's some ways that I can incorporate some more of this language within this specific plan.
And I want to make one more point, and then I'm going to shut up so other people can say something. It is not your fault, and it's not Dan's fault. It's not Rick's fault. But the way that Metro fails is we fail to plan. And we should have been planning out 100 years, and we haven't. And so the cut-through road that they originally talked about on Pettus has no good place to go. The hill is too steep, the curve is too sharp, there's too much traffic. We've let other builders build in an area that stopped that from happening. That doesn't mean, though, that everyone else should be punished for the rest of our natural lives and for your children and grandchildren's lives by having inadequate road structure and improvement. Burkett Road is going to be a major route, whether anyone who lives on it wants that or not. And we're still talking about doing that in the future at the end of Nolensville Pike construction, which they have told us is going to take a decade. And by then, we will have added the other 10,000 people that's already planned, plus these other several thousand that the two of you tonight and others are talking about doing. And we're going to be like Atlanta. And that ends up hurting everyone. So Councilman Rutherford, I would say to you that number one, Councilmember Lee is 60 feet away where her district starts. She should be part of the conversation. And number two, we need to have a concrete plan in place for the improvement of Burkett Road before we start adding more and more traffic to it. And then the final thing is the rock quarries. I want to see some kind of plan to not have all of those going at once, because all the way down into Nolensville, they're complaining about that. And we know that the state and federal government is the ones who legislate and control that. So our only hope of having a more reasonable time with that is if we do it on this front planning stage and get agreements ahead of time. With that, I'm going to shut up.
Hey, Twana, I'm going to share.
Let me jump in there just real quick, because this is a publicly noticed meeting. Councilmember Lee received the same notification that all council members did in regards to this meeting tonight. So she was aware of it and was welcome to join.
I hear you, but that's different than having an in-depth conversation about a plan for a roadway that divides two districts. And I don't want to argue that. I'm just saying that's an example.
But also you have to keep in mind, we are not allowed to have those conversations with one another.
Right, but you can have them at public places with all of us.
And that would, right now would be the time for her to be here. She's not here. So that's all I know to say on it.
Hey, Twana, I want to share
Lee
this with
cannot
you.
be on this meeting at the same time while it's virtual.
Yeah.
She has to be in a public place.
I'll offer up Cane Ridge Community Club for an in-person meeting for this purpose at any time.
Hey, Twana, you still there? Can you hear me?
Yes, yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to show it. So when I started working on this, I pulled up the Metro Major Thoroughfare Plan, which you can see right here. And it shows that Calderwood was supposed to be extended from the north up to Burkett Road along that purple alignment. But when they did this development, and you see that parcel in blue, when they did the parcel in blue, this is where they basically wound up putting that road. It was supposed to be a 59-foot right-of-way, and they're just showing it as a local road. And I have no clue how that got through the process or through the system without being noticed. So now what we really have is something starting to look more like this in the blue. And so the stub outs that you can see that are going east and west actually goes across the church property, almost just right through that parking lot next to the building to make another connection. And so, traffic and parking, they're looking at this right now. And I don't know what the final result is going to be, but I think they've decided that taking this east-west connection and then forcing it back down to Old Burkett just puts too much traffic on Old Burkett, and that's not something that they want to do. So I just wanted to share this with you just to show you that this is something I'm working on. And I'm working with TDOT to try to get them to make some reasonable decisions on how this is going to work in the future and how it's going to serve all the constituents that live there. I'm glad that we talked. Go ahead, Twan.
I appreciate it. We had a meeting with NDOT specifically about this as a community and did a lot of work on it a couple of years ago.
Okay. I like the comment from the council member and that y'all may be aware of a walkable access. I think it's a great idea. So I will be talking to NDOT about that as well, and the multimodal aspect of that department and how it would relate to the community. And I'm going to get your comments, your checklist. I'm going to look at all that and see what I can incorporate into this plan. And once I do that, I'll send it to the council member, and then I'm sure he'll get that to you as well. All right.
We are over time, so I want to give the opportunity for anyone else who wants to ask a question before we conclude.
John, this is Hannah. I got a question for you.
Yes, Hannah, go ahead.
Did all of these projects happen to donate to you? Because I'm curious about where you're at with the projects or with the constituents who voted for you.
Are you referring to the last election cycle and campaign donations?
Yes.
I can assure you that has no bearing on this. But yes, there are people on the phone or on this call that made campaign contributions. Yes.
Thank you for answering.
Yeah, I mean, these projects stand on their own. These are zoning developments. Although there is an applicant now, that applicant could go away someday and this property could be picked up by someone else. So it's vital to us to work with the council member, work with planning, work with NDOT, work with the community, and try to get as much language into this document as possible so everyone is protected. And I can assure you that my client wants to do that. I want to do that. I know the council member wants to do that, and we'll do the best we can.
Are there any other questions?
One final one. Roy, are you and Dan still involved with the project down at Burkett at Old Hickory that got deferred?
I'm glad you asked me about that one. I think you should call me, Twana, because I don't know that we need to talk about that project in this setting, but I do need to talk to you desperately.
We want to have a meeting.
Okay,
just
I
wanna
want
say
to
that again.
also.
I sent you a couple of emails. We want to have a
Okay.
meeting.
Oh, yeah,
Thanks.
we need to have one because this has been deferred multiple times by the council member for a community meeting and no meeting has been set up. And it's awkward for me to set up a meeting and not have the council member involved. And so I'm at a loss on that one, but we'll work it out. I'll look for your email.
Any other questions? We'll take another minute. So we are over time, but we'll take another few minutes if anyone has anything else they want to get out there.
Hey, this is George. I was wondering what Roy just meant about the council member being involved. I'm not really sure that I understood what he meant by that.
Well, so obviously, as someone that's been on the council myself, we are working through a process of getting a zoning approved. And in order to do that, I have to be courteous towards the council member and put this in his hands on how he wants to handle his meetings and the things that he's asking or looking for me to do. He is the spokesperson for your community, and I'm sure he'll have input for me. And so I would work with him just like I would work with anybody else as far as input as to what needs to be revised on the plan. So nothing's being done privately. Everything's being done is done publicly. I don't even think I've talked to the council member yet about this project since I've submitted it. I've intentionally avoided that because I really wanted to do this in a community forum.
So there's no kind of conflict or anything like that.
None whatsoever. No. I'm very cautious about that. I'm cautious about that to protect me, but I'm cautious about that to protect any elected official because I'm a former elected official myself, and I'm going to do the best I can. Just like we talked about a few minutes ago on this project in Councilmember Lee's district. I have been just staggering around. I don't know what to do. I know that she's asked for a community meeting, but she's never set one up. And so now I'm almost forced to go to the community myself, and I don't want to do that. I think it's disingenuous towards that council member. I have to have faith.
I'm just a little bit concerned that it's being pushed off. I hear you saying like it almost sounds like you're blaming Twana for not setting up a meeting. And I know that we set up meetings all the time, so I'm not really sure that it would be for anything on her part.
No, I'm not blaming her.
I want to stay away from discussing matters in another council district.
I'm not blaming her at all.
Council members' priorities or whatever the case may be. That's up to Councilmember Lee in terms of how she handles things in her district. I know she's done a number of community meetings and some virtual just like this as well. So I think we should leave that at that because that's
I agree.
A different district and a different matter.
I'm sorry to take up your time on that. So I apologize.
This is David Duncan. I live in Burkett Place. Can I ask a question?
Hey, yes, sir, David, go ahead.
So the first presentation is it Blackburn?
Yes, Rick Blackburn.
Just looking at everything that we saw in that presentation, it looks consistent with the quality of the other construction that we see up and down Burkett Road. So I really have enough detail that I don't really have any concerns about the way that that's laid out. Looks like 119 units on how many acres? I never did pick that up.
I think some of their folks are still on, if they could answer that real quick.
We're at 11.6.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, so the density doesn't seem to be that high to me.
the last one that was mentioned, I don't really have a good sense of what that is with 280 units up to 4 stories high. It doesn't sound like it's townhomes. I'm not exactly sure what type of construction that is. It sounds more like condominiums or something or apartments. What's the plans there?
I don't know if you were there in the very beginning when Dan and Vicar talked, but no, this is a multifamily apartment site. It is not townhouses. It is not condos. It is an apartment site. And generally on apartment sites, in order to make them functional, you're doing somewhere between 280 and 320 units. This is sort of a magic number. So this site actually, because of its acreage, because its proximity to a policy that actually would allow much more density, that's an appropriate place to put this. And by the fact that it doesn't abut other lesser density developments at an equal elevation anyway, this is a good place to put it. So originally we applied, or we thought about just applying for a base zoning, but I advised the client not to do that because within a base zoning, it provides the council member or the community zero opportunity to add any kind of conditions or requirements or restrictions to the zoning itself. So that's why this is being done as a regulatory plan.
So what it sounded like you said you were going to allow people ownership of those apartments. That's what the part I was confused about.
No, I think what they do is, and Dan may be here and maybe his charger's working, I don't know, but they primarily serve service employees like teachers or firefighters or police and people that don't really necessarily have the resources to purchase a house. And so I'm not sure how they do this, whether they set aside a portion of their rent, but at some point in time when they're ready to purchase a house, this company pays up to 70% of their costs in order to get into a home.
Okay.
So that's their model. I believe they have another development right there on Old Hickory Boulevard, I think. And Dan, are you still here?
Yes, I'm still here.
Can you tell them where your other development is so
Yeah,
they can
we're
be
at
aware of that?
6228 Nolensville Road, and then 6224 Nolensville Road, and then Bell Road next to the for-profit school. Those are the three that are the closest.
And would this project be similar in quality as those?
Absolutely.
Okay. So those could give you really good examples of what they build. And
Would you give me the addresses again, please?
6228 Nolensville Road, 6224 Nolensville Road, and on Bell Road next to the for-profit school. And it's been a while, but I've forgotten the Bell Road address. And if you and I can hook up this week or next week, I'll be glad to take you over to those projects.
Okay.
What's your vacancy rate in those existing buildings, Dan?
We've got waiting lists. In the month of December, we lost 6 school days. We leased 34 units in December on 6228 Nolensville Road. This country has a problem with attainable rental housing, and we are answering the call.
How many police, fire, and teachers reside in those complexes?
A lot. I'm going to say on 6224, we've probably got Metro, fire, police. I'm going to say we've got 25 people. It's significant.
It'd be awesome to bring some of them to a meeting to speak.
That's a good idea, Twana. Thank you.
That's a good idea.
What's your rent rate for those properties?
Studios. Let me take a peek here. Studios. Hang on one sec. So I can give you a good number here. Net rents, I'm looking at my spreadsheet, $11.75 for a studio, $13.25 for a 1-bedroom, and $16.90 for a 2-bedroom.
Okay. Where is the nearest apartment buildings to this up and down Nolensville Road? I don't know exactly where the address of 6224 and 6228 is.
We're on both sides of that, the dental office there on the east side of Nolensville, next to Lenox Village.
Oh, it's in the Lenox Village area. Okay.
Yeah, it's just next to Lenox Village.
Right next door there.
So it's not actually down in the Nolensville area so much as it is up in Lenox
That's
Village.
right.
Okay.
That's right. And again, I'll be available anytime to take you to show you these communities. We're really proud of them.
Dan, while you're at it, if you could maybe say something about the plan that you have in terms of the homeownership and how that has impacted the turnover rate for those units. Is that's been asked about in the chat?
Yeah, it's pretty cool because if you live with us for 4 years, if you pay your bills on time, and if you take a class from Affordable Housing Resources on what it means to, sorry y'all, I'm at a baseball game now. What it means to own a home, pay taxes, pay insurance. If you do that, then the general partners of Ramsden Capital will make 70% of the down payment for your first home. And what that does is it gets people involved in their community. And I've showed folks on a Saturday morning, you can see people picking up trash. It's just a whole different feel in a community. It's like they belong. And that's what I've wanted to do with these rental communities, is really have a sense of ownership. If there was a way to do this, I'd have an avenue where the renters could own. And I hope that's something we do on down the road. Actually give them ownership so they can enjoy depreciation and the upside of living in these communities. And
So they're incentivized to stay with you longer.
Yes, just to stay there and be a part of the community and help it grow and be a part of the neighborhood and do good things.
What are the name of those apartments on Nolensville Road?
Yeah, the 6228 Music City on the south, views of Music City on the north, and then on Bell Road, it's Lofts at Brentwood.
I'm sorry, Lofts?
LOFTS at Brentwood.
Okay, all right.
People who are coming to Nashville don't know that they're not in Brentwood, but they're good looking. So
Is the Crockett the same model, Dan?
yeah, Crockett's the same deal.
So that,
Yep.
and that's in Hermitage.
Yeah, that's in Hermitage. It's a good looking product. And like for this apartment community, we're going to have $75 million invested in this thing. It is a long-term commitment.
And we're clearly over time here, so I appreciate everybody that's hung in there with us. I'll say the same thing I did at the end of the other one, and that's if there were questions that were not answered, or if you think of something after the fact, feel free to get those questions to me, and I will share those with Dan and his team and try to get answers back to you for anything that we haven't been able to address. With that, and I never saw Brett from planning, so I think he didn't make it out of the planning commission in time to jump on with us, but that's okay. Anything last minute, because I know we want to give everybody the chance to enjoy the rest of their evening, but we'll take just one or two.
I just wanted to say thanks to everybody.
Get out there.
Cane Ridge Community Club still meets the first Monday of each month at the old schoolhouse there at the intersection of Cane Ridge and Old Hickory Boulevard, 6 p.m. This coming April Fool's Day will be pizza night. We also will have someone from the Sister Cities program speaking. Several of our council members got to go on that trip over about 3 weeks ago. Our email's in the chat if you want to be part of it. We promise not to spam you.
All right. With that, then I think we're ready to roll on off of here. Again, I really appreciate everyone for joining us. And if there's anything else we can do in terms of getting some questions asked, feel free to send them my way, and we'll get that done. So appreciate everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
And thanks again, Rosie, for setting this up.
Thank y'all for taking hard questions. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.